A lonely rancher found an Apache girl hiding beside a grave, then realized she'd been waiting for him. The Arizona sun beat down mercilessly on Jake Harmon's weathered face as he guided his horse along the dusty trail. At 45, the lines around his eyes told stories of hardship and solitude. 20 years of ranching alone in the harsh landscape of the Sonoran Desert had hardened him, but also hollowed him out. "Come on, Rusty," Jake murmured to his chestnut quarter-horse. "Just a little further." The small cemetery appeared on the horizon, a patch of graves marked with simple wooden crosses and stone markers. Jake visited monthly, a ritual he'd maintained since his wife Sarah's passing 15 years ago. The cemetery also held his parents, and in a corner beneath a gnarled mesquite tree, the grave of a man Jake had never met but felt strangely connected to. Thomas Whitefeather, an Apache scout who had saved Jake's grandfather during the frontier days. As Jake approached the mesquite tree, he noticed something unusual, a small figure crouched beside Whitefeather's grave. Drawing closer, he realized it was a girl, no more than 16, with long black hair and distinctly Apache features. She wore jeans and a faded t-shirt, but around her neck hung a traditional beaded necklace with a turquoise pendant. The girl startled at his approach, jumping to her feet like a frightened deer. "Easy now," Jake said softly, raising his hands. "I'm not going to hurt you." Her dark eyes studied him intensely. "Are you Jacob Harmon?" she asked, her voice surprisingly steady. Jake felt a chill despite the heat. "Yes, that's me. My grandmother said you would come." The girl's gaze was unwavering. "She said I should wait by the scout's grave until the tall rancher with sad eyes came." "Your grandmother?" Jake dismounted slowly, keeping his movements deliberate and calm. "Elena Whitefeather, the scout's granddaughter." She gestured to the grave. "But my great-grandfather?" Jake's mind raced. The Whitefeather family had disappeared from the area decades ago, after disputes with local authorities over land rights. The girl reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded, yellowed letter. "My grandmother died last month. Her last wish was that I bring this to you." She extended the letter with a trembling hand. "Oh, she said it was time for an old promise to be kept." Jake took the letter, his fingers brushing against hers, an unexpected connection that sent another chill through him. As he unfolded the paper, he recognized the handwriting immediately. It was Sarah's, his late wife's final letter that he thought had been lost forever. "How did your grandmother have this?" Jake whispered. "She never told me," the girl said. "She only said that your paths were meant to cross, and that I should trust you." Her voice cracked slightly. "I have nowhere else to go." Jake looked from the letter to the girl, seeing for the first time the bruises partially hidden by her collar, the haunted look in her eyes. Whatever this girl had fled from, she was in trouble, and somehow, through a chain of events he couldn't begin to understand, she had found her way to him. "What's your name?" he asked. "Maya Whitefeather." The wind picked up, stirring dust around the graves. In the distance, thunder rumbled as storm clouds gathered over the mountains. "Well, Maya Whitefeather," Jake said, folding the letter carefully and tucking it into his shirt pocket, "I think we'd better get back to the ranch before that storm hits." As Maya climbed onto Rusty behind him, Jake felt the weight of a promise he didn't remember making, but one he somehow knew he had to keep. "Wait, this story is just beginning, and there are secrets waiting to be uncovered. What connection does Maya have to Jake's past? What was in Sarah's final letter? And what dangers followed Maya to the rancher's doorstep? If you want to discover the truth behind this unexpected meeting, subscribe now to continue this journey. Hit that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss what happens when Chapter 2 reveals the shadows haunting both Maya and Jake. Your subscription is the key that unlocks the rest of this emotional tale of redemption, connection, and second chances. The storm broke just as they reached the ranch house. a modest two-bedroom structure with a wide porch and weathered wooden siding. Jake helped Maya dismount before leading Rusty to the barn, giving her a moment to take in her new surroundings. "No, it's not much," Jake said when he returned, raindrops clinging to his hat brim, "but it's home." Inside, the house was clean but sparse. A bookshelf lined one wall, filled with history books and Western novels. Photos in simple frames captured moments from a life that seemed to have stopped 15 years ago. Jake and a beautiful woman with kind eyes, standing in front of a newly built ranch house. The same woman on horseback, laughing at the camera. "That's Sarah," Jake said, noticing Maya's gaze. "My wife." "She was beautiful," Maya replied softly. "Yes, she was." Jake cleared his throat. "Bathroom's down the hall if you want to clean up. I'll fix us something to eat." While Maya showered, Jake sat at the kitchen table and carefully unfolded Sarah's letter. His hands trembled slightly as he read, "My dearest Jake, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and I'm so sorry for leaving you alone. There's something I never told you, something I should have shared long ago. Before we met, I made a promise to Eleanor Whitefeather. Her family saved my father when he was lost in the desert, and in return, I swore that if ever the Whitefeathers needed help, our family would provide it, no questions asked. Elena spoke of a time when one of her bloodline might come seeking sanctuary. I didn't understand then, but I promised anyway. Honor this pledge, Jake, not just for me, but because kindness given freely returns when we need it most. All my love, always. Sarah." Jake folded the letter, deep in thought, when Maya appeared in the doorway. She'd changed into clean clothes from her backpack, a faded blue flannel shirt and jeans. Her wet hair was pulled back, revealing a nasty cut above her right eye that Jake hadn't noticed before. "That needs looking at," he said, rising to fetch the first aid kit. As he cleaned the wound, Maya winced but remained silent. "You going to tell me what happened?" Jake asked, applying antiseptic. Maya's eyes darted away. "Some men came to the reservation. They said my grandmother owed them money. When they couldn't find what they wanted, Her voice trailed off. "These men, they followed you?" "I don't think so. I was careful, took buses, hitchhiked." She met his gaze. "Grandmother taught me how to disappear." Jake nodded, recognizing survival skills when he saw them. "You're safe here." Later, over a simple dinner of beans and cornbread, Maya studied Jake. "Why did you agree to help me? You don't know me." Jake considered his answer carefully. "I believe in honoring promises, even ones I didn't know I made." He paused. And I know what it's like to be alone." That night, as rain pounded the tin roof, Jake made up the spare bedroom, untouched for years. Maya stood in the doorway, clutching her backpack like a shield. "Your grandmother," Jake said. "Did she tell you anything else? About Sarah or about me?" Maya hesitated. "She said you were a good man who'd lost his way, that helping me might help you find it again." She shifted uncomfortably. "She also said I should give you this." From her backpack, she produced a small leather pouch. It belonged to Thomas Whitefeather. Inside the pouch, Jake found a tarnished silver deputy's badge, its star dented on one side. "I don't understand," Jake said. "Neither do I," Maya admitted. "But grandmother said it would make sense when the time was right." That night, as Maya slept, Jake sat on the porch, turning the old badge over in his hands while lightning illuminated the desert in brief. Electric flashes. Something about the badge stirred memories, not his own, but stories his grandfather had told about a debt unpaid and justice deferred. Whatever storm had brought Maya Whitefeather to his door, Jake sensed it was just beginning. The next morning broke clear and fresh after the storm. Jake found Maya already awake, standing on the porch watching the sunrise paint the desert in gold and crimson. "You're up early," he commented, offering her a mug of coffee. "On the reservation, grandmother and I always rose with the sun." Maya accepted the coffee with a small smile. Thank you. Jake had chores to do, cattle to check, fences to mend, and to his surprise, Maya insisted on helping. As they rode out across the property, Jake found himself impressed by her quiet competence around horses and her willingness to work. "My father was a ranch hand before he died," she explained when Jake commented on her skills. "He taught me some before the cancer took him." By midday, they'd checked the southern pasture and were heading back when Jake noticed dust on the horizon, a vehicle approaching along the access road. "We don't get many visitors out here," he said, frowning. "Let's head back quick." When they reached the ranch, a black SUV was parked in the yard. Two men in press shirts and jeans that looked too new stood beside it. City men trying to look like they belonged in ranch country. Mr. Harmon, the older of the two, stepped forward as Jake and Maya dismounted. "I'm Richard Dawson. This is my associate Carl Weber. We're looking for a young woman who went missing from the White Mountain Reservation." His eyes slid to Maya. "Ah, I see you found her." "She's not missing," Jake said evenly. "She's here as my guest." Dawson smiled without warmth. "I'm afraid it's more complicated than that. Maya's grandmother left some items that rightfully belong to our employer, family heirlooms. Maya here took them before proper arrangements could be made." "And who might your employer be?" Jake asked. "Mr. James Barrett. He's a collector of Native American artifacts. He had an arrangement with the late Mrs. Whitefeather." Maya stepped forward. "That's a lie. Grandmother would never sell our family's sacred items." Weber's hand moved slightly toward his jacket, and Jake tensed, suddenly certain these men were armed. "Why don't we all calm down?" Jake suggested. "Maya, take the horses to the barn. I'll speak with these gentlemen." Maya hesitated, then nodded, leading the horses away. "Now," Jake said once she was out of earshot, "I don't know what business you think you have here, but that girl is under my protection." Dawson's smile disappeared. "Mr. Harmon, you seem like a reasonable man. The girl stole valuable property and assaulted one of our men. We're being generous by not involving the authorities. Funny, those bruises on her face tell a different story." Jake crossed his arms. "I think it's time for you to leave." "We will, with the girl and what she took." Dawson's voice hardened. "Don't make this difficult. This is private property. Either leave now, or I'll show you out myself." The men exchanged glances. "We'll go," Dawson said finally. "But this isn't over. Barrett doesn't give up what's his." After they drove away, Jake found Maya in the barn, trembling. "They're gone," he assured her. "For now. They work for Barrett," she said. "He came to the reservation often, trying to buy artifacts. When grandmother refused to sell, especially the sacred bundle, he became threatening." Her eyes filled with tears. "The night she died, his men came. They said she'd finally agreed to sell everything, but I knew that wasn't true." "What sacred bundle?" Maya reached into her backpack and withdrew a buckskin-wrapped package. "This has been in our family for generations. It contains maps to ancient Apache sites and ceremonial grounds. Barrett wants to loot them for artifacts he can sell." Jake studied the weathered buckskin. "And the badge, how does that fit in?" "I don't know exactly. Grandmother said it was part of a story that needed finishing, something about your grandfather and mine." That evening, Jake called an old friend, Sam Taggart, a lawyer in Phoenix who specialized in Native American rights. "They'll be back," Sam warned, after Jake explained the situation. "Barrett has connections, political, legal. He's been accused of artifact trafficking before, but charges never stick. What can we do?" "I'll file for emergency guardianship for Maya. Given the circumstances and your connection through your wife's promise, we might have a case." Sam paused. "But Jake, be careful. Barrett doesn't play by the rules." Later, while Maya slept, Jake examined the deputy's badge again. Something about it nagged at him. He went to the bookshelf and pulled down his grandfather's journal, a record of his years as a rancher in the early 1900s. He'd never read it completely, but now he flipped through the yellowed pages until he found an entry from 1923. Thomas Whitefeather saved my life today, ambushed by Lowry's men. I would have died if not for Thomas's warning. The deputy's badge I carried meant nothing. Lowry owns the law in these parts. Thomas says there are sacred places in these hills that must be protected. I have given my word that my family will guard his secret. Blood oath made under desert stars. Jake sat back, stunned. The puzzle pieces were beginning to fit together, a promise made almost a century ago, passed down through generations, now landing on his doorstep in the form of a girl with determined eyes and a sacred trust. Outside, an owl called into the night. Ancient voices seemed to whisper on the desert wind, urging him to remember what his family had once stood for. 3 days passed in an uneasy peace. Jake taught Maya more about the ranch operations, and she shared stories of her life on the reservation. The traditions Elena had passed down, the struggle to preserve their heritage against poverty and outside pressures. On the 4th morning, they rode to a high ridge overlooking the property. In the distance, the mountains rose purple against the sky. My grandfather's journal mentioned sacred sites in these hills, Jake said. Places your ancestors considered holy. Maya nodded. The bundle contains maps to ceremonies, burial grounds, and medicine circles. Barrett would destroy them all for the artifacts he could sell. Why not turn the maps over to tribal authorities? Grandmother didn't trust them. Too many have been corrupted by money. Maya turned to him. The maps show sites across several states, Arizona, New Mexico, even parts of Texas. They're part of a larger story, our people's journey and survival. As they headed back to the ranch, Jake noticed another dust cloud approaching, larger this time. His stomach tightened. Ride hard for the house, he told Maya. Use the CB radio in the kitchen. Call Sam Taggart. Numbers by the phone. Tell him we need help now. At the ranch, Jake ushered Maya inside before grabbing his shotgun from the gun cabinet. He loaded it and stepped onto the porch just as 3 vehicles pulled into the yard. Barrett's black SUV, followed by a police cruiser and another truck. James Barrett himself emerged from the SUV, a tall man in his 60s with silver hair and an expensive leather jacket. The sheriff, a heavy-set man named Bryce Hollister, stepped out of the cruiser. From the truck came Dawson and Weber, along with 2 other men. "That's far enough," Jake called, keeping the shotgun pointed downward but visible. Sheriff Hollister raised his hands placatingly. "Take it easy, Harmon. We're here on official business." "What business is that?" Barrett stepped forward. "Mr. Harmon, I have here a court order demanding the return of property stolen from me by Maya Whitefeather." He held up a document. "The girl is a runaway minor, and I've been granted temporary custody as her late grandmother's business partner." "That's a lie," Jake said. "Elena Whitefeather never partnered with you." Barrett smiled thinly. "I have documents proving otherwise. Now, please send the girl out with my property and we can resolve this peacefully." Inside, Jake could hear Maya on the radio, urgently speaking to Sam. He needed to buy time. "Sheriff, have you actually verified these documents?" Hollister shifted uncomfortably. "Court signed off on them. That's good enough for me." "Even when the judge who signed them is Barrett's golfing buddy?" Jake challenged, remembering what Sam had told him about Barrett's connections. "Watch yourself, Harmon," Hollister warned. "Don't make this worse than it is." "I've filed for emergency guardianship of Maya," Jake said. "Until that's resolved, she stays here." Barrett's smile disappeared. "Sheriff, execute your duty." As Hollister reluctantly moved forward, the sound of approaching vehicles made everyone turn. 3 tribal police SUVs roared into the yard, followed by Sam Taggart's sedan. The tribal officers, led by a stern-faced captain, positioned themselves between Jake and Hollister. "What's going on here, Sheriff?" the captain demanded. "Pie. Executing a court order, Captain Redbird," Hollister replied. "This is county jurisdiction." "Actually," Sam interjected, emerging from his car with a folder, "the court order has been temporarily suspended pending an emergency hearing." He handed papers to both Hollister and Redbird, and as of 20 minutes ago, the tribal court has issued a protective order for Maya Whitefeather as the custodian of sacred cultural property. Barrett's face darkened. "This is absurd. The girl stole my property." "Property you claim Elena Whitefeather sold to you," Sam interrupted. "Yet we have Elena's will, executed 3 months ago, specifically stating that all family artifacts and documents were to remain with Maya. Strange that she'd sell them to you after explicitly declaring otherwise." Captain Redbird stepped forward. "Mr. Barrett, we're also investigating allegations of coercion and assault against members of our tribe by men in your employ." Weber and Dawson exchanged nervous glances. "This is a misunderstanding," Barrett insisted, though his confident demeanor had cracked. "Nevertheless," Redbird continued, "the sacred bundle and maps will remain under tribal protection until this is resolved. And Maya Whitefeather will remain with her guardian of choice." "Guardian of choice?" Barrett scoffed. "Harmon here is no relation to her." "Actually," Sam said, producing another document, "we've discovered that Jake's wife, Sarah, was Maya's godmother, named so in a ceremony conducted by Elena Whitefeather 17 years ago. Under tribal custom, that creates a recognized family bond." Jake looked at Sam in surprise. This was news to him. Barrett's face contorted with fury. "This isn't over," he snarled, turning to leave. "One more thing," Captain Redbird called after him. "The FBI has been notified about potential violations of the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. They'll want to speak with you." As Barrett and his men departed, followed by a chastened Sheriff Hollister, Jake finally lowered his shotgun. "How did you know?" he asked Sam and Redbird. "Maya's call triggered something we've been building for months," Redbird explained. "Barrett's been targeting sacred sites across 3 states. We just needed evidence connecting him directly to the thefts." Sam clapped Jake on the shoulder. "And you, old friend, just helped provide that connection." Later, as the tribal police documented Maya's statement and photographed her injuries, Jake stood on the porch with Sam. "And did you really find evidence that Sarah was Maya's godmother?" he asked quietly. Sam smiled. "Elena Whitefeather kept meticulous records. When Maya called, she mentioned your name and Sarah's. That led us to ceremonial documents Elena had filed with the tribal council years ago." He looked at Jake curiously. "You really didn't know?" Jake shook his head, gazing out at the desert. "Sarah kept some secrets, it seems. Good ones?" 2 months later, the ranch had transformed. With Barrett facing federal charges and the sacred bundle safely returned to tribal custody under Maya's guardianship, life had settled into a new rhythm. The spare bedroom was now permanently Maya's, decorated with photos and crafts from her life on the reservation. Jake had enrolled her in the local high school, where she was catching up on the education she'd missed while caring for her grandmother. On a warm Saturday, they sat on the porch steps, watching the sunset paint the desert in fiery hues. "I got a letter from the tribal council today," Jake said. "They've invited us to a ceremony next month to honor Elena and Thomas Whitefeather." Maya nodded. "Captain Redbird told me they're also going to formalize your guardianship." She hesitated. "If that's still what you want." Jake looked at her, this resilient young woman who had brought purpose back to his solitary existence. "It is, but only if you're sure." "I am." Maya smiled. "Grandmother was right about you." Jake fingered the deputy's badge, which he now kept in his pocket. The mystery of its significance had finally been solved through old journals and tribal records. His grandfather, falsely accused of cattle rustling, had been saved from a lynch mob by Thomas Whitefeather. In gratitude, he'd given Thomas his deputy badge, a symbol of justice that the official law of the time had failed to provide. "Your great-grandfather was a hero," Jake said. "So was yours," Maya replied. "They protected each other when no one else would." From the barn came the sound of hammering. Sam Taggart and several men from the reservation were helping build an extension, a workshop where Maya could continue the traditional crafts Elena had taught her. "I've been thinking," Jake said. "This land has been in my family for generations, but I've never done much with it except run cattle. Maybe it's time for something more." "Like what?" The tribal elders mentioned they need a safe place to bring young people, to teach them traditional ways, connect them with the land. Jake gestured to the expanse around them. "There's plenty of space here." Maya's eyes widened. "You do that. This land has history, your family's and mine intertwined. Seems right to honor that." Jake smiled. "Besides, I could use the company." As the last light faded from the sky, stars appeared, the same stars that had witnessed a blood oath between two men nearly a century earlier, an oath that had, through twists of fate and the resilience of memory, led to this moment of healing. "We should visit Sarah tomorrow," Maya said softly. "I'd like to thank her." Jake nodded, feeling a weight lift from his heart, a weight he'd carried for 15 years. "She'd have liked you," he said. "She always said family isn't just about blood. It's about promises kept," Maya finished. Together, they sat in comfortable silence as night embraced the desert. The land that had witnessed so much hardship now cradled a new beginning, a lonely rancher and an Apache girl, bound by history, healing together under the vast Arizona sky. In the distance, an eagle soared on thermal currents, free and purposeful. Jake watched it disappear into the gathering dusk, thinking that after years of merely existing, he too had remembered how to fly.